ancestor that I know the most about was my father's grandfather, and that was John Henry Lewis. He was born in 1856, and he was actually born in Cobb County, but the family, the Lewis side of that family, actually came from North Carolina. But my grandfather married a girl, her name, my grandmother's name, was Pauline Logan, and the Logans lived out Wade Green Road and owned the property, which was a farm, of course, that was the now Clearwater Estates. One of the things that she was a great storyteller, so I remember a lot of things from her. And she drilled into me what her grandmother's name was, her grandmother Green. Her grandmother Green's name was Eliza Lucinda Teresa Arminda Salina Matilda Green. My grandmother said that she had many sisters, and that at her birth, all the sisters showed up and had to have a name. So they all contributed to her name. And I can only do the name if I do them two at a time, Eliza Lucinda, Teresa Arminda. Well, my mother and father, I'd have to get them in there together, they married when they were 16 and 17. And my father then went right into the service. It was World War II, and I'm sure 17 years old, he probably didn't have a way to make a living, and the war was, raging, so he enlisted. When my father came back from the service, they sort of started a family, right away. Right. And in the meantime, he was working for the Ackworth Power Company with Lemon Smith, Nancy Maxwell's father. I remember him quite well. And he worked for a little bit at Unique Knitting. And that was I think they were probably living with my grandparents in order to save a little money to get a house. And they did that. My father and mother bought the house on Seminole Drive as a result of getting the GI Bill for the financing. And that opened up the possibility of my mother working somewhere close. And one of the first jobs she had that I remember was as a soda jerk at Lacey Drug Company. For a while I was just a little bit, didn't know what to think about my mother working when almost everybody else's mother was staying at home. But that was just some of the things that my parents had to do to get by. Well, our neighborhood was wonderful for children because anytime, I'm an only child, so sometimes it was sort of lonesome around my house, but I could walk right down the street to the playground called the Flats, and there would always be somebody there playing. And there were lots of kids. We skated. One of the biggest moments in my life was getting a bike that was big enough that I could ride all over town. And that was sort of my signal for freedom to be able to go any place. I started taking some college courses just to have something to do. I was mostly a stay-at-home mom, and I enjoyed that. But, I put Sam in kindergarten in the daycare, and I started taking courses just for fun at Kennesaw College. And I got bit by the bug again about going to school. And in the course of taking some of these classes, I found out that Kennesaw had an associate degree in nursing. And in 2 years, I could have a degree and be a registered nurse. So that's what I decided that I would do. And my husband was supportive. My parents were willing to, and grandparents were willing to help me with the children. So I started going after that nursing associate's degree with a good bit of, determination, and got that in 1977. At that point in time, there were lots of little community hospitals all around Georgia. Cartersville, Rockmart, Canton, all had these little independent community hospitals. And the closest one to me was Cartersville, and that was Sam Howell Hospital that had a whopping 33 beds, and that included all of the bassinets that were in the nursery. So I went to the director of nursing and started to sell myself as a person who could take some of the load off of the OB/GYN physicians up there who were inundated with indigent care. And that often was the way that nurse midwives got into the system, was that way. So they took a gamble on me, and I worked with a very nice doctor up there named Don Gouldsby, who may still be in practice for all I know. But he was very supportive of me. If I needed him to help me with a patient, he was always there. But I delivered the first 200 babies I ever delivered in that setting at Sam Howell Hospital. But really, Johnny was an interesting person, not perfect, but had a perfectly wonderful nature for helping people. And the stories that people have told me since his death about how he had helped them are really remarkable. It became his job to rescue everybody off of the interstate. And he had an extraordinary gift for making a car go. Maybe he couldn't, he didn't have what it took to, or the tools it took to repair the car right then, but he could get it up so that you could limp over to the garage. And if somebody was stranded on the road and it was going to take a day or two to fix the car, he brought them home and they stayed in the camper until, I could have killed him sometimes. But it made his heart, it was just what made him happy. And he didn't mind doing it at all. What I like about Ackworth is that we have a history, and it's really a good history and remarkable, and I'm glad that we're learning it now, because I learned nothing about the history of Ackworth when I was in school. But we are a town that has a future, and we have some arguments and some disagreements about things, but in the end, it seems like we're all dedicated to making Ackworth a better place to live, and that is what I admire about Ackworth. I think it's been interesting for me to be able to do this interview. And one of the good things and the bad things is I'm, practically the end of my line now. My husband's gone and both my parents are gone and I'm an only child. So the good thing about that is it's my story and I get to tell it like I want to. And nobody can correct me about it.